rough, and it takes all that you've got, but he's been here, just waiting for you to knock, to take his hand and plant your feet on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock.
Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock, and tonight our guest is Michelle Hatfield. She had lunch with the Pope at Madrid, Spain during World Youth Day of 2011. She and a group of volunteers got to meet with him and talk with him. She's going to share her experiences as a volunteer and that meeting. And why I was so excited about this show was because of an address that he gave to the Curia that following Christmas, and he referenced in a big way, in fact, most of his address was about his meeting with the World Youth Day volunteers in Madrid. And he drew these beautiful, profound lessons we're going to talk about tonight, and Michelle's going to share her experience, and a big deal. So looking forward to that. Good to see you, Doug.
You too, Father.
And we also have tonight, we're going to do a phone interview with Father Matt Lowry from Arizona. And this is part of our World Youth Day preparations. And so we're going to roll our World Youth Day Central. So joining us now on the phone is Father Matt Lowry. Are you there, Father?
I am here. Hello, Father Mark.
Great. First, tell us, where are you in Arizona?
I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is 2 hours north of Phoenix, and it's still part of the Diocese of Phoenix.
Okay. And are you you're a campus minister there?
Yeah, I'm the chaplain for Northern Arizona University.
Okay. Now, we hope to have you on the show in the coming months and be connecting with your group as time gets closer. Get closer to World Youth Day in Rio. Tell us about your preparations as a group for Rio.
Well, we first started talking about this pilgrimage a year and a half ago when it was announced after World Youth Day in Madrid. And we had as many as 50 people excited about it, but when push came to shove and money was due, our group dwindled, but we're excited to have 10 people going. And so we've been doing fundraisers, one of which has been to make care packages during finals week for the other students. We've written letters to family and friends to invite their support to sponsor us, at $10 a day kind of thing. And we've been doing prayer support. Just recently we had a meeting where we got together and we finalized talking about if we want to do any immunizations, things to be ready for, mosquitoes and different things that we may encounter on the trip, as well as what things to bring, because it's a long pilgrimage and you don't want to be carrying a heavy bag. So just a lot of different details.
Right. I think Rio, the World Youth Day organization actually puts out like spiritual preparation guides and things. Have you had a chance to look at that yet?
I've looked at, there is a World Youth Day prayer specifically that we have, and we've been praying, and I love it because the theme has to do with evangelization. And so it's already preparing the young people's hearts to be evangelists to their peers and to the world. And so that's been the biggest component that I've seen.
Yes, and one thing I'm looking forward to with your group is you're making videos, right, that we're going to show on the network. Tell us about that.
Well, one of our students, probably the first student who signed up and is the most excited, she's an electronic media and film major here at NAU, and so she's been taking some footage and doing some interviews, and we're real excited, because it'll be a way that our family and friends and anyone can journey with us on this pilgrimage, even though they themselves can't go.
Right, so we can share that to the media world. That's good stuff. I know Doug and I talk about it every week between ourselves. We're expecting a lot of people. Are you expecting a big group?
We're expecting a scary amount of people. I mean, and especially with the election of Pope Francis from Argentina, I mean, the numbers jumped from expecting 2 million to over 3 million, 4 million. I mean, who knows? So it's going to be pretty exciting.
Right, amen. So, well, I look forward to checking in with you in the coming weeks, and thanks for joining us, Father.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for all the support, Father Mark.
Okay. And if anyone wants to know more about World Youth Day, you check out www.rio2013.com and punch on the English button if you want to see it in English and learn more. They have all kinds of helpful preparation materials. You know, one thing I wanted to say just before we go to our guest tonight is, too, that what our Holy Father said, His Holiness Benedict XVI said last World Youth Day, he was talking to the volunteers, and he said, perhaps many of you felt a very simple question forming in your hearts, faintly or forcefully, as the case may be. What is God asking me to do? What is His plan for my life? Is Christ asking me to follow Him more closely? Should I not spend my whole life in the mission to proclaim the world the greatness of His love through the priesthood or the consecrated life or marriage? And he goes on to make a little joke. He said, you're probably thinking, well, the Pope, we've just volunteered for World Youth Day, and now the Pope's asking us for something more. And he said, yes. He says, that's my job as Pope to do that. But this is the part I love. He says, your life will achieve fulfillment. If we follow Christ, he says, your life will achieve fulfillment in ways you cannot imagine. Perhaps some of you are thinking, the Pope came to thank us, and here he is asking us for something more. You're right. But that's the mission of the Pope. Something that we can't even imagine, right? He surprises us in filling us and giving us His peace, drawing us close to Him in ways that we can't predict. And we're going to hear that in Michelle's story tonight as she followed her inspirations to volunteer at World Youth Day and where that took her. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a minute with Michelle Hatfield.
Let us raise our minds and hearts to Jesus Christ, the Lord of our life and of the future. May He pour out His Spirit upon us and upon the whole Church, that we may be a beacon of freedom, reconciliation, and peace for the whole world. I greet all the English-speaking young people present here today. As you return home, take back with you the good news of Christ's love, which we have experienced in these unforgettable days. Fix your eyes upon Him, deepen your knowledge of the gospel, and bring forth abundant fruit. God bless all of you until we meet again. Place honor anunciar ahora que la sede de la próxima Jornada Mundial de la Juventud será Río de Janeiro.
Hi, welcome back. And tonight our guest is Michelle Hatfield. She'll be sharing her experience as a World Youth Day volunteer, which I really wanted to talk about because I've wondered. I've been to several World Youth Days. What's going on behind the scenes? What's the structure? How does it work? And of course, you're meeting with the Holy Father. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's just start with about you personally. Where are you from?
I'm from Stafford, Virginia. It's outside of Washington, D.C.
And you grew up in a Catholic home? And
I did. Both my parents, they've been married for 28 years, and I have an older sister and 2 younger siblings. We're military, so we kind of moved around a lot as a child.
And where did you go to school at?
For
college.
College, okay. Texas A&M University.
Okay. And they have a.
What was your kindergarten formation?
Oh gosh.
The whole educational spectrum.
I think I would have to like backtrack a couple of states, so I don't know.
You shared with the other kids and stuff. But that's Texas A&M's got a great Newman Center. That must have blessed you. Right?
It did. They actually have adoration Monday through Friday for actually 24/7 for the I guess adults to go to, and mass, and it's pretty energized. So.
And your majors, what did you study?
I studied finance and Spanish.
Right.
So.
Double major, and how long did that take you?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. Wow. So in the heart of that busyness, intense academic pressure stuff, you discern to go to World Youth Day, right? Tell us about that.
So I had to study or work abroad or be abroad somewhere to finish my Spanish degree, and at first I was going to Peru because Machu Picchu's there, and Ecuador, but my dad kind of vetoed both of those. So a priest came over one day for dinner when I was home for the summer, and he kind of planted the seed of going to work for World Youth Day.
Right.
So
we should say that priest is Father Jerome Magat, right? He's a classmate of mine in seminary, and Arlington's got a lot of great priests. He's no exception, and it was great to hear he's part of your story. But I wanted to talk about in general too, your whole discernment process, which I thought was interesting, talking to you on the phone about this show and everything. You're very careful, even about coming on the show, which I don't know why she was scared to come on the show, Doug, but
I don't have any idea.
But you took that to prayer, and generally your steps of discernment are what?
Well, generally I go to confession, and I go to mass, and I pray about it. I think about it, and I talk to a priest about it, and then I decide. Other times, you feel a pull and you go, and so it just depends.
Right. I think that's so great. I mean, you bring in another person to reflect, talk it out, and especially a priest. I mean, I think that's a great witness. So he had dinner. He suggested it with you?
Yeah. So my dad actually told him I needed to go to another country, and if he had any suggestions, and he just said, well, why don't you go work for World Youth Day? And I said, how would I do that? He goes, it's probably on the internet. So I went back to school. I was an RA, and classes started, and one night I just thought, you know what, I think that'd be good. I really feel like I'm supposed to be there. So I went online, and I made a cover letter, and I emailed my resume and cover letter out to all the emails on the website because I had no idea where to go from there. So a priest from Madrid emailed me back and connected me to World Youth Day, and it was a 6-month process from there.
Tell us about some of the structure. I guess every World Youth Day might be different to some degree, but how do they structure the volunteers?
So basically, first of all, the volunteers are usually between the ages of 20 and 30. There were a couple that were in the 40s, but for the most part, the youth were the ones that communicate with the Vatican and put on the organization and do the logistics and coordinate the pilgrims and the volunteers. So ironically, not ironically, but you have a core like 300, they're called, of the staff volunteers, international and national. And then you have the religious life in there who also works with us. And these 300, have been working on World Youth Day anywhere between like a few months to 2 years. And they're the ones that are kind of the core. So they're the ones that bring the rest of the volunteers in August for the event, and they coordinate all of that. And I think we had between 20 or 30,000.
Right. And then you have another tier above that, like
So I guess if we went down, you have the cardinal at the top.
right.
And then the next row would be you have the communications director, you have the volunteers director, you have the housing director, and then below them you would have the supervisors and the coordinators, and then it goes down from there. And you had, which was the section I was a part of, is the translators and interpreters, and they were the ones that also worked with, you know, getting the rest of the volunteers there in August, and we were in charge of translating and interpreting at the same time, coordinating and doing background checks of the other 20 or 30,000.
Right. And then the Vatican sends over people to help with the organization somewhat, or?
No,
Not really?
not typically. We usually you have we would go to them. We would go to the Vatican or call them. There were a lot of people, and you know, a lot of the priests or the cardinal also would talk to them. And we had, you know, people from all over the world.
Right. Now, you sent out the emails to all these different departments, and this one priest got back to you.
This one priest got back to me. He said, I think we could use you. And he, you know.
That was an understatement, right?
Yeah. And he goes, you know, I really think you're supposed to be here. And, you know, I was kind of thinking, yeah, you know, me too. This is confirmation a little bit. So I started communicating with this other girl who was in Madrid, and, you know, kind of work out the details. And you know, we had the interview, and they said, okay, well, we definitely want you. We're going to, you know, bring you over. And then I got this email probably beginning of December, and, you know, they said, well, we can't afford to bring you over. You know, the economy's really bad. We just can't afford it. And so I called my sister up, and my older sister, and I told her that I don't think I'm going to be going to Madrid anymore. She says, well, you said that's where you think you're supposed to be going? I said, yeah. She goes, well, what are you going to do? And I said, this is the end of the line, you know. So she offered to pay for my first 3 months of rent, and my parents, you know, gave me their United miles to fly over, and that's
so you went over, and then where do you stay? Is there like housing for the volunteers?
Well, yes, but I was kind of a unique case because I volunteered. Like, I'm paying for my entire way over, and so I found my housing through something along the lines of my mom's friends, brother's friends, acquaintance. And she was an 80-year-old woman who I've never met before. She didn't have internet, so she didn't email. And so we corresponded through one letter. And I basically sent her a letter that said, I want to, you know, I agree to pay this much, and I would like to live there. And she was supposed to call me back, but she never did. So there was like a month and a half where I'm trying to call her, and I thought she was dead for a while. But I finally got a hold of her, and she said that she was just traveling. So.
So throughout this whole process, Michelle, it sounds like there was a fair amount of time where you probably had the moment of pondering, even lamenting in prayer. Lord, is this really? I mean, you're not getting answers necessarily. You hit a dead end at one point. Door opens again, then you communicate with this lady, she's not answering, you think she's been abducted or she's dead or something. So I mean, were there moments in there when your prayer just was kind of ebbing and flowing, upping and downing, and just not sure what was going on?
You know, there was moments. I think to make that initial leap and say, okay, God, I know this is where you want me to go. It's easy to kind of get on that train, but when you start hitting all these obstacles, you know, it's hard to go, okay, is this really what you want? And so I did. I went to the church a lot, and I prayed about it a lot. I sat in the silence, and I really contemplated it and said, okay, is this really where you want me to go? And each time it just, I felt like inside that I was supposed to be there. So I even got my visa the day before I left. So he was cutting it pretty short.
Close, yeah. Just to make things interesting.
Yes.
Add a little flavor to the story. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
I guess God and all that's trying to bring out of us a greater trust, right? That to keep our eyes on Him. And
I think so. I think that, you know, the phrase "Jesus, I trust in you" it's easy to follow Him when everything's, you know, easy. You know, it's when you're like, okay, God, this is your will, and everything just falls into place, and that's just, you know, it's not really it's not demanding of your faith.
And I guess we forget too, if it's all just falling into place, we tend to think we're doing it or something.
Yeah, there was no doubt in my mind that I didn't do anything. So,
Right.
So even when I got to World Youth Day, you know, there were some complications when I first arrived. So
They forgot you at the airport.
they left me at the airport. So, you know, I arrive on a 6-hour flight. I'm waiting, I'm excited, I'm like, yes, I finally made it, and no one picked me up for a while. And I called them, and they forgot I was coming. So.
But you turned out, I was amazed at the work you did for them. Describe that work.
So, well, when I first got there, I was pretty much the bottom of the barrel. I walked in, and the communication didn't go down that the American from the United States was arriving. So. No one knew who I was for a while. And then I got into translating and interpreting. And, you know, one thing just led to another, and I did that for a while. And
you did significant, I mean, you did like official
so
correspondence.
Anything anything that was in English that the pilgrims got or that the volunteers got, the governments needed, things for visas, emails, passports, you know.
Even to the Vatican.
Documents, all those documents I translated because I was the only Spanish to English translator. So, you know, sometimes it was, you know, 1 or 2 pages, and then other times you're dealing with like 50, 60, 70 pages.
Wow. So I mean, that's hard work. That's just not having fun, right? That's hard work, isn't it?
It's pretty hard, yeah. It's an art form. So.
Yeah.
Did you ever reach a point when you looked at a word and said, I have no idea what that means?
No, I didn't reach that moment. I don't think. I think that I was pretty comfortable with it. Yeah. So.
And how the amount of time before World Youth Day took place? How long were you there before it all took place?
I was there, I think, 6 months.
6 months. Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. A lot of sightseeing.
A lot of you work hard and you play hard. So some sightseeing. I saw Toledo. Toledo was one of my favorite places, and
that's in Ohio, right?
not quite.
Well,
different one. Okay.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about some of those issues. 'Cause I think that's a big part of your experience, the joy and fellowship you had with other volunteers. So, short break. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back. Michelle Hatfield is our guest, and we were talking about the fellowship aspect and the fun, but just one more thing about the translation. You actually did like simultaneous translation, right?
I did. So I did interpreting, which basically means Spanish comes in, English goes out. And I think when other volunteers came, there was a moment where I was interpreting for 2,200 volunteers, which is kind of intimidating when you're looking at the crowd. So. But no, it was a lot of fun.
Right. You know what I liked about that aspect of your story is that, you know, you discerned this God was calling you, and you really had something to contribute. I mean, you were needed there, right?
Yeah.
And God's calling these volunteers from different places, right, to come and together and to do this work together.
It's really amazing to see the stories that these volunteers had. One girl was from Australia, and she felt like she was supposed to be in Spain for some reason, but she didn't know why. And so she just went to Spain and went to Mass, and the priest said, hey, you know, I think you should be working for World Youth Day. And so she stayed. You had people that had 2 degrees that were trilingual, that spoke 5 languages, you know, that...
that was my situation.
Definitely, yeah.
I speak.
Oh, sorry, that was crazy.
You think it's a joke? It's true. I speak English and I speak American.
Well...
This is a little more sophisticated
yeah.
than that.
So anyways, these a lot of them, they left jobs on the drop of the hat. They left school. They just kind of had this calling, and they came.
And what was the blessing of that? I mean, I know it seems like when we give generously, God's never outdone in his generosity. How were you blessed in giving?
I think that, in this type of society, it's a lot of the times people think that if you live a virtuous life, that means you're called a religious life. Or if you live a virtuous life, then you're a prude and you don't know how to have fun. And so, sometimes it's challenging to be that one person in the crowd saying, no, I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to engage in those conversations. But when I went to World Youth Day, there was, we were all like that. And so it made me realize that, no, we're not alone. Right. That there's a group of us that are like this.
It's kind of like an underground army, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because the mainstream media doesn't, in general, isn't going to promote the fact that there are people, especially younger people, who are striving for a virtuous life.
Exactly. But the thing is we had a lot of freedom because there was no pressures. We knew what our values were. We went backpacking, we went camping. We would go. You would say, hey, you want to go to Toledo? And they'd be like, oh yeah, let's go. Or we taught each other different dances, and we had dinners, we had coffees. We would go to festivals. It's just a different type of living.
Yeah. And the center of it all was all around Christ. The fact that this is about Christ. This is about a brother and a sisterhood that's much bigger, much broader than this world can really.
Exactly. Like for me, it's kind of you make God your rock. Right. And so
you have your life on that rock.
Yeah. So you. Oh, life on the rock. I got it. Okay. I'm helping promote your show. So, but you make God that rock, and so when things get hard, that's where you go. Right. Is you go to God and you go into prayer and you take action.
And for the people listening and watching right now, what you describe about having these associations with these people from all over the world who had come together, there's a real security in that. There's a real sense, when I say security, not a worldly security, but it's a security that's outside the world. That these aren't friends just because we share common interests, just because it's the popular crowd or they're good athletes. This is a sense of security in that these are brothers and sisters in Christ that share in the same values of the Eucharist and the Rosary, and isn't that something that people really long for but have a hard time getting in touch with?
I think so. Like for us, we talked about God. We talked about world problems. We also talked about hair and dresses and boys and those common things that you talk about.
Why did you mention hair?
Well, you still got some, but so we still had those conversations. Sure. But we prayed together. We did daily mass. We said the Rosary. Even now we keep in contact through email and through Skype. And when someone is in trouble, one of us is always there for them. And because we have each other, and even with uncertainty, there's certainty.
Right. I liked. It reminds me of something the Holy Father said, and I mentioned in that His Holiness Benedict XVI said to the Curia back after World Youth Day. He said these young people did good. First, he said they didn't do good to find a personal fulfillment or to earn heaven, so to speak. These young people did good, even at cost, even if it demanded sacrifice, simply because it is a wonderful thing to do good, to be there for others. All it needs is the courage to make the leap. Prior to all this is an encounter with Jesus Christ, inflaming us with love for God and others, freeing us from seeking our own ego. And I hear that in your story, kind of like this, and the other volunteers just kind of generously giving this time, and that was your experience?
Yeah, it was. I think that each of us, we want something more out of life. We don't want to just be satisfied. We want to do. We all have like this flame inside of us, and we all want to do God's will. And so at the same time, making that leap and that initial yes is easy. It's easy to say, okay, God, I'm gonna go down this road with you. But you have to be able to keep saying yes even when it looks impossible or it looks challenging. And
you speak about like a new sense of freedom, a deeper freedom you experienced there. Tell us about that.
Well, I think because like all of us, like we all had this adventurous spirit, and I think that because we all shared the same values and we all knew without saying where everything stood, we had more freedom to have fun just by going on trips, taking the spontaneous adventures or the planned adventures, or even just going to someone's house. A lot of us I know had culture shock when we went back to our own countries. A lot of the times that people are afraid. They're afraid to have fun and to talk to one another because I think they're afraid of that initial human interaction. So a lot of the time, you say, hey, you know what, let's go to Nashville. And they'll be like, oh yeah, Nashville, that sounds great. And 6 months later, you're still having coffee at Starbucks. So, it's just a whole different situation.
What are some of the things you learned about yourself and maybe our American heritage that, they kind of stretched your boundaries, seeing how the Spanish did this or the Europeans did that?
Well, that's kind of a hard question because I was military, I'm used to adapting quickly to different situations and cultures. So I really didn't run into a problem when it came to adapting between the Spanish or the American culture. In my mind, it's different. When I'm talking to someone in Spanish, I'm more dramatic. I use my hands. You get more emotional. You hug more. Whereas when I talk to people in English, I'm a lot more reserved at first and quiet.
That's. I always loved World Youth Day for that because you have these different cultures coming together and they can help inform one another. And certainly joy is like the characteristic of World Youth Day. And that promo video we showed there, I think it's put up by the official World Youth Day organization, that I thought that is so true because you would see like the World Youth Day pilgrims come into this big modern city and some of maybe the youth that aren't participating kind of staring at the outside, wondering from the outside, what's this all about? I'll never forget an experience. We were in Cologne, and this was kind of a sad experience, but I remember all the pilgrims were going to some event, and they were walking along the Rhine River, and literally they had these parties and celebrations. I remember the Africans had this like Congo line and stuff, and doing all these fun things. And walking the opposite direction were these two, they were like punk. They were dressed like in a punk style. But I remember they looked so miserable, kind of unhappy. They were walking against the grain. And hopefully somebody did eventually talk to them. I didn't see it. But I remember it was a stark contrast that, Jesus gives us joy. He gives us fellowship, takes us out of our isolation, right?
Yeah. I think that, I think people in general strive to be happy. Why do you think that, like, what's the motivation for someone to be rich for most people? It's because they think that money is going to buy them happiness. But, the happiest people I've ever met was at World Youth Day, and it's because you let, whatever's inside of you shine out of you. And you're happy in that moment. And you just experience just doing God's will and living life with the church and serving the church. You experience an unexplainable happiness.
Right. And you're bringing all these skills you have. You studied at a university, bring that training here, serving. I like that too, that the church isn't just some bunker or some castle with the drawbridge pulled up. It's in the world. You're using all your talents. And I really feel like, World Youth Day is just one of the greatest activities of the new evangelization going on today. To me, it always kind of stuns the world. You guys, World Youth Day is like igniting youth, which are real agents of change, right, in our culture, firing them up.
Well, I think that the youth, they don't realize what they're capable of. A lot of the times when you talk to the high school students, they think the people that do World Youth Day are, I'm not going to say anything because I might offend someone, but who are significantly older. But in reality, reality, you know, World Youth Day, it's done by the youth. The youth,
Right.
we create it for the youth, which
Right.
I think is very unique.
Right.
I think it's because, you know, the youth, we know how to talk to one another. We know how to say, hey, you know what, you want to have a lot of fun. You want to have an unforgettable experience. You want to have that experience that you're thinking, wow, I wish that I just had that one experience that would change my life. You know, come here, come to Madrid.
Right.
You know, we'll even feed you.
Right.
You know, it's a good option for them. So.
And we actually,
We'll even feed you. That's specifically for the young men out there.
Yeah.
Feed you. Oh,
We don't tell them what we're going to feed them.
exactly.
But we're going to
Because
feed
you're going to
them.
be sleeping on gym floors and riding
But that's
the back
part of
of
the
the bus.
fun. Like I slept on the gym floors with the volunteers.
Well, I mean, the pilgrimage, the ruggedness and difficulties are part of these moments that really create great memories.
Oh, well, you know, when you're sleeping on the cement floor, you know, you learn a lot. You know,
You have time to ponder much.
you have time to ponder, but most of the time you don't want to sleep a lot. So, you know, you're out, you know, singing in the rain or playing baseball, you know, with the other pilgrims or volunteers.
you know, I remember we had Matt Fradd on the show, and he was from Australia, and he was basically sent by his mom, I think, you know, he was in high school, and he wound up having this powerful conversion. You know, he's a chastity speaker today, blogger, and from going, and he said he was really convicted by the other pilgrims that he went with. The other young people really evangelized him in their witness, and I think that happens more than we know. You know, World Youth Day. You know, something else that Benedict, he talked about Madrid and reflecting on it. He said, he was telling the Curia, you know, the world seems to suffer from a faith fatigue. He said, you know, we feel like Christianity has been tried, it's been lacking, and he said, World Youth Day shows us the freshness of the faith, that the church is ever young and ever youthful. And I thought that was a great observation, because I always feel kind of energized. I mean, just even watching that video. He said,
Well, in a powerful way also, because we see the Holy Father, whether it was John Paul, Blessed John Paul II, you know, Pope Benedict Emeritus Francis, these men are not spring chickens, you know, physically, but their heart and their soul, the spirit is just alive and rich, and there's a youthfulness there.
Right.
You know, youthfulness in the Spirit of God is timeless. You know, there's no age restriction on being young when it comes to the fire of the faith. And the Holy Spirit, I don't see no age on the Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Birthday to God, you know?
Well, I think it shows you that, you know, one, how powerful prayer is, and that, you know, even when you're tired, you know, prayer can be that extra step to help get you through, and you see that with their age, but yet they're doing these big events, and there still has that fire shining through them. As far as the faith fatigue, like, I even see that among the youth, you know, especially coming back, you know, I know people who were Catholics, and they get tired. They get tired from being bombarded by the media. And, you know, I went to Netflix because the other night, and like I got home from work, and I just wanted to watch a nice little movie. And, you know, majority of the Netflix movies, you know, just by looking at the titles, you know, I'm going, wow, this is not appropriate. You know, there's things I don't want to see. And people get tired of hearing from their peer groups or from other people, hey, don't do that. That's not cool. You know, if you want to be a good Catholic, like, then you can't have, you know, this life in the secular world. You can't be married. You can't do this. And because of that, I've seen people step away from the Catholic faith who are very young.
Right. I think that is so critical. We mentioned it last show too, that that's sad to me if we ever fall into the trap of thinking, well, I can't be a Christian in the world. And that's not the case, right? We're called to serve and do good. Where there is no love, put love, to draw forth love, right, as John of the Cross said.
Exactly. So. And I think that the World Youth Days sends out kind of ambassadors to different parts of the world and different areas, and they don't have to do anything. They just have to be witnesses and say, you know, just be present,
right,
you know,
right.
and be a light.
Right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with the lunch story. That's coming next, so don't go away. Welcome back to Life on the Rock. We have Michelle Hatfield with us, and she had lunch with a special someone. Tell us how that happened.
Well, I came into work one day and I sat down, and one of my friends came behind me and you know, in English, well, in Spanish, but he said, "Congratulations, congratulations." He was like shaking me, and I said, I thought he was talking about, you know, I finished a translation. I said, "Oh, that's okay. I finished that last Friday." He goes, no, congratulations. And my friend from Italy said, she doesn't know. And he goes, "You're having lunch with the Pope." And as you can imagine, I'm like, I'm having lunch with who? He goes, "The Pope, go call your parents." So I called my parents, and it was probably 3 a.m. this time, you know, in the United States. And my dad picks up. I said, "Dad, I'm having lunch with the Pope." And he goes, "With the Pope? Kathy, our daughter's having lunch with the Pope." And my mom's like, "Wow." I go, "Don't tell anyone. I don't know if this is actually going to happen." You know, I felt like for majority of the time that it was like someone's gonna jump out at me and say, "Got you," you know, like one of those reality shows.
Right.
And so I told my family not to tell anyone. And then, you know, I was kind of a couple months, maybe a month or two later, I get into work and people start grabbing me for photo shoots and for interviews, for, you know, television shows, and it was just like this constant, you know, going around, and they kept going, "What are you going to say to the Pope? What are you going to say to the Pope? Are you excited?" And I kept thinking, well, my response was, well, I'm going to Mass, and I'm praying a daily rosary, and I'm saying, "Okay, God, you know, help me to know, you know, what to say." But, you know, I never actually this whole time believed I was going to have lunch with the Pope.
And you were being interviewed on TV about it.
I was being interviewed
and you really
on
not
TV.
believing it.
I really was not believing it. And so, you know, I learned very quickly to carry a bag with, you know, an extra dress and some makeup and some, you know, a hairbrush, because they never let you know ahead of time if you're being interviewed. So towards the end of July, I all of a sudden got promoted to supervisor and coordinator of the 2,200 volunteers, and I was doing translate interpreting. So then this bag got even bigger because I had, you know, my blue shirt and a green shirt and jeans and a dress, and I was just carrying it around with me everywhere. And the week that, you know, the week of World Youth Day came, and that Friday was we were going to have lunch with the Pope, and, you know, I get my dress on,
So this
do
is
my hair.
in the middle of World Youth Day.
This is, well, no, it's towards the end, because Sunday was the last day.
Okay.
So it was Friday. So, you know, I get my dress on, I get ready to go. I go to where we're supposed to meet the Pope, and
Still not believing
I'm
it.
still not believing it. Like, I'm still waiting for that hidden camera. And my thought was, who am I to have lunch with the Pope, one? And this was really unexpected. So, because remember, I got that visa like the day before.
Right.
So, you know, they put us in this room kind of like this, and we're all sitting and standing around, and there's 12 of us total. And everyone's really nervous. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say, and they're kind of like breathing heavy, and they're excited, and I'm just kind of cool and collected. And not because I wasn't excited, but because I thought this must be some type of joke. They're really taking it far. So then the Pope comes in, and it was just a surreal experience. He walks in, and the moment he walks in, you feel something inside of you change. And it's just really hard to explain. You just feel something change inside of you. And, you know, he goes to each of us, and, you know, we kiss him on the ring, and we tell him our names and where we're from. And he goes to a little cake piano and pretends he's playing the piano. And you know, he just had just amazing sense of humility. And you know that you're like, wow, this is just a holy man. He must be a saint, because that's just how you get around him. But he has such humility that you feel like you've known him forever, that he's a father. And so
you sit down and have lunch, and then there's a time where he does take questions from you all. Right?
So we basically sit down, we have lunch. It's like having lunch with your family. So I've worked with a lot of them for months, and we pray, we work together, we did a lot together. And so we sat down, the cardinal's on one end, the Pope's on the other, and people are going around and they're talking and about different things, and I'm kind of sitting there, and you know, really listening to like these other conversations, and all of a sudden it became my turn.
You're the last one.
I was the last one, and yeah, I said, you know, Holy Father, I've been praying and praying and praying that, you know, going to daily mass and saying a rosary and saying, Holy Spirit, just please, you know, let me know what to say. Help me to say something really insightful or intelligent, you know. But here you are, and I said, Holy Father, sometimes God's timing isn't my timing. I just don't have anything to say. He started laughing, and the whole room started laughing, and you saw this human side of the Pope.
Right.
And, you know, I was thinking, wow, okay, that wasn't that bad. It was okay. And so I thought that was it. And
well, I think that's an important quality about our popes, certainly John Paul, that they come alive with the young.
they do. You know, you see they're like, it's like they're young with you, and you feel very comfortable around him. And he literally, you know, you at that moment you sense that this is the father of the church. And at that moment, he feels like a father to you. So you feel a very strong, intimate relationship.
Right. So, but you said something else, though, right?
Yeah.
Or he asked you a question.
So, you know, he then said, Michelle, what do you think about the youth? And, you know, I said, you know, Father, I think the youth needs your guidance, because you know, it's hard to know how to be young, because you're told from the church that you're supposed to have these values, and being young means this, but then you have your, you know, different peer groups, and you have society, and you have movies, and you have saying this is what it's like to be young, and this is what it's like to be young, and you have the family saying this is what it's like to be young. So you're pulled in different directions, and I don't think the youth knows what it's like to be young, how it's really like to be young. And you know, that was something that I experienced at World Youth Day, that you can have these values, but you can have more fun than you've ever had in your life.
And what did he say? What was his answer?
Well, he looked at me and he says, you know, it goes quiet, and he goes, yes, that's because they don't know the reality of Christ.
Right.
And, you know, at that moment, like, everyone in the table was like, wow. You know, we're all taking that in. But I don't think anyone really grasped what it meant at that moment. So it was...
And we just have a couple minutes
Yeah.
now, but how would you describe, what does that mean, to know the reality of Christ?
You know, I think that, I think we're examples of the reality of Christ is the best way to describe it, is that we go into the world, but yet we let Christ shine through us. We let our faith shine through us. And we understand that that Christ was human and he was divine, that the church is human and it's divine. And that we use ourselves as examples to bring people to the church.
To help the other young people learn the reality of Christ.
Exactly. Like, you know, I volunteer with a youth group in Birmingham, and the main reason why I volunteer is so that they can see an example of someone who didn't have to fall, who didn't say, let me just try this so that I'm reachable, who said, you know, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to live the faith, and I'm going to let my faith and my values shine through who I am.
Right. And what did the Pope say? Anything at departing at the end of lunch, or?
Well, I think that he was a little surprised. I bought a one-way ticket to Spain. I didn't buy a round trip. But no, like he said goodbye, and he blessed different articles before he left, and he walked out the door, and it was just an amazing experience. It was like a 2-hour lunch.
Wow. Wow, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming to share that with us, and we hope this show blesses all our viewers at home, and this witness of service and joy, and how God, you know, if we follow him, discern his will, as we mentioned before, he leads us to a place of fulfillment we didn't expect or think possible. But thank you so much for joining us. May our Heavenly Father shine His face upon you. May He give you His peace. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We'll see you next week.